This branding kit made me $1,240 on Etsy in just 5 months, and I have dozens of products like this in my shop. So today I'm going to show you exactly how I designed these so you can sell them too. For those of you who don't know, a branding kit is basically a collection of visuals that help a business look consistent and recognizable. It's what brands use across their social media, website, email, storefront, and packaging. So for this branding kit, we're going to be designing logos, social media covers, business cards, email signatures, and a thank you card, all using Canva. For this specific project, I'm going with a cowboy-themed branding. And whenever you're designing anything, this is really where you want to start. Figure out your theme first. What kind of style are you going for? For me, it's cowboy branding. So from there, I start thinking about what elements would support that theme. Like what fonts would fit a cowboy aesthetic? What colors would work well? What kind of elements can I use? So now that we have a direction, let's start designing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to start with is the logo. Click Create a Design. And one of the things I love about Canva is that it already has preset dimensions for pretty much anything you want to make. So if you just type in logo, you'll see it'll generate a ready-made canvas for you. In this case, it's 2000 by 2000 pixels, which is perfect. So let's go ahead and click that. Now, whenever I'm designing a logo, the first thing I like to do is to choose my colors and my font. It just makes the whole process so much easier because the ideas just flow better when everything is already set. So usually I'll pick around 4 colors for the design and then I'll choose a font to go with it. For this one, I'm using Cooper BT. And what I like to do is adjust the letter spacing a bit. So I'll just select the text, go to spacing, and bring the letter spacing down to around -56. I personally like my text to look a little bit more compressed. It just gives it a more modern feel. So now that I have my base elements ready, I'm going to go ahead and start designing. So usually when I'm designing a logo set, I don't just create one version. I like to make a few variations. The first one is the primary logo. This is the full version of the brand name and it's the one that's used most of the time. Then I'll create a secondary logo, which is just another variation of the design, so the client has different options depending on where they want to use it. And then finally, I like to create submarks, which are the smaller versions. This is usually where you'll just see the initials or a symbol, often placed inside a circle or a square. So for the first page, I'm going to start by changing the colors. I'll switch the background to one of the brand colors that I chose. One thing I love about setting your colors on the first page is that it automatically shows up here under Document Colors. So whenever you need to change anything later on, it's just so much easier to find everything. Then I'm going to copy and paste my text here and change it to the brand name, which is Cowboy Creative. For Cowboy, I'm keeping it in this brown color, and for Creative, I'm switching it to this dark green. Now I'm going to add an element that fits the cowboy theme. So I'll just search Cowboy here. When you're choosing elements, filter it to free only. That way, whoever uses the template doesn't need a Canva Pro subscription. So I'm just going to scroll through and find something that fits. I really like this lasso, so I'm going to add that in. Then I'll adjust the colors to match the branding and position it nicely within the logo. And that's pretty much it. Our primary logo is done. Alright, so now for the second page, I'm going to change the background to brown. Then I'll just copy over the same text from the primary logo and adjust the colors a bit. And as you can see, I'm not really reinventing the wheel here. I'm just taking the same concept from the primary logo and switching things up slightly. Now I'm going to look for another element that fits the branding. I'm thinking a cowboy hat, so I'll search for that and pick one that works. I'll add it in, change the colors to match the brand, and then position it nicely within the logo. I also want to add some stars just because I feel like it really ties into that cowboy aesthetic. So I'll place a few on the left and right side, tilt them slightly, and just have them frame the design a bit. And there it is. That's the secondary logo. I did end up finding a better hat later on, so I swapped it out, but this is the final look. Alright, so for the third page, we're creating one of the submarks. I'm going to start by adding a circle shape and changing the color to brown. Then I'll copy over the same text that we've been using from the previous logos, make everything uppercase, and adjust the color. I want to wrap the text around the circle, so I'll go to Effects and choose Curve. I'll also switch the font to bold and then adjust the letter spacing until it wraps nicely around the shape. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other word as well. Next, I'll add the same stars we used earlier and place them on the sides of the circle. I'll change the color to dark green. I feel like it just works better here. Now for the center, I want to add a symbol. Instead of just searching cowboy, I'll type in Wild West because it usually gives more variety in terms of elements. I found this really cute cowboy hat that matches the style of the lasso from the primary logo, so I'm going to use that. I'll adjust the colors to fit the palette, position it nicely in the center, and that's pretty much it. That's the final look for the first submark. Now for the second submark, I'm going to add another circle, but this time I'll change the color to dark green. I'm going to duplicate the circle, set the fill to transparent, and then add a border. I'll change the border color to white, adjust the stroke style, and increase the weight to around 4 to 5. Then I'll position that inside the circle so it creates an inner frame. Next, I'll add the initials of the brand. Since it's Cowboy Creative, I'm using 2 C's. For the second C, I'll lower the transparency to around 45%. This just adds a bit more depth and makes the design feel more layered. And then to tie everything together, I'll bring back the same star element we've been using and place one on each side. And that's pretty much it for the second submark. Now that we have the logo created, this is something that can be used pretty much everywhere. This can go on social media, on packaging, on storefronts, business cards, and even on someone's website. And that's exactly why branding kits are such a strong product to sell, because you're not just helping someone make their business look good. You're helping them create a brand that can show up everywhere. And speaking of showing up everywhere, one thing you can also do once you finish creating a product like this is not just sell it on one platform, but actually sell it across multiple platforms. And one of those can be your own website. Because if you look at a lot of successful Etsy sellers, they don't just stay on Etsy forever. As they grow, they eventually expand to selling on their own websites, and that's usually how they're able to scale to hundreds of thousands or even millions in revenue. And that's something I personally think is really important to think about early on. Because while Etsy is amazing for getting started, at the end of the day, you are still building on a platform you do not own. Now, this isn't to scare you, but there have been cases where shops get permanently suspended, and that's exactly why having your own website can give you a lot more stability and peace of mind. But something people don't talk about enough is that it's not just about having a website. It's also about your domain name, because that's your online identity. It's the first thing people see, and it sets the tone for your entire brand. So if you're planning to build your own website, one thing I would recommend is using a .store domain. It's basically like a .com, but specifically made for online stores. So instead of having a random domain, you can have something like your brand name .store, which instantly makes it clear what your site is about. Signals to your customers and even to Google that your site is a place to buy something. And because of that, .store domains have been shown to get more clicks, which can lead to more sales, which is exactly what you want. Big names like Mr. Beast, Cristiano Ronaldo, Rihanna, and even brands like Emirates are already using .store domains. But it's not just celebrities. There are also a lot of everyday business owners building their websites on .store. And I will say from personal experience, buying domains can get expensive really fast. But right now, they're actually running a limited time offer where you can get a .store domain for just 99 cents using my code YALE. So if you've been thinking about starting your own website, this is honestly a really good opportunity to lock in your domain before someone else takes it. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to check it out. All right, now let's move on to the Facebook cover. Go ahead and click Create a Design and search for Facebook cover. Canva already has preset dimensions for this, so just select the first one, which is 851 by 315 pixels. Then I'm going to bring in the same color palette and font that we used for the logos, just so everything is consistent and easy to access. Now for this part, and you'll notice this throughout all my designs, I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm basically taking the logos we already created and just building on top of them to fit this format. And that's something I really want you to take note of. You don't have to start from scratch every time. You can literally reuse your existing designs and just add small variations to make them work for different assets. So for this one, I'm going to change the background to white and place the primary logo right in the center. Then I'll bring in the same star element we've been using, enlarge it, change the color, and place it in the background. I'll also add 2 more stars, one on the left and one on the right, just to balance everything out. And that's pretty much it for this first Facebook cover. You can see how I didn't really do much, but those small additions and layout changes make a big difference in how the final design looks. Now for the second Facebook cover, I'm going to change the background color to brown. And again, the same concept applies. I'm just going to bring in the secondary logo that we created earlier. Then I'm going to add some elongated rectangles almost like lines and place them on the sides to add a bit more detail to the layout. I'll change the color to white and create 3 of them on one side, then repeat the same thing on the other side to keep everything balanced. For the middle rectangle, I'm going to lower the transparency to around 50%. This just adds a bit more depth and dimension to the design. And that's pretty much it for the second Facebook cover. You can see how just by adding a few simple shapes on the sides, it already creates a completely different layout. Alright, so for the final Facebook cover, I'm going to start with a dark green background. Then I'll bring in one of the submarks we created earlier and just adjust the color slightly so it fits better with the green. Next, I'm going to go into elements and search for a grain texture. I like adding this because it gives the design a more rugged Western feel, something that fits really well with this kind of branding. So I'll find a free grain texture and I think I like this one. I'm just going to rotate it to landscape, enlarge it to fill the entire canvas, and place it in the background. Then I'll lower the transparency to around 30% so it's not too overpowering, but you can still see that texture coming through. And that's pretty much it for the third Facebook cover. And one of the best parts about this is that once you've created your Facebook covers, you can easily turn them into other types of designs. All you have to do is click the resize button on the top left, then search for whatever format you want to create. So you can turn this into an X or a Twitter header, a YouTube banner, Pinterest covers, pretty much anything. For example, if you want to make a YouTube banner, just select that size and click copy and resize. Canva will automatically adjust your design to fit the new dimensions. Once it generates, you might just need to tweak a few elements to make sure everything is aligned properly, but overall, it makes it really easy to turn one design into multiple products in just a few minutes. So for the rest of the branding materials like the business card, email signature, and thank you card, I'm not going to walk through everything step by step again because the process is pretty much the same. Instead, I'm just going to show you how everything turned out and walk you through the thought process behind each one. Alright, so let's move on to the business cards. Same process, go to create a design and search for business cards so you get the standard dimensions. For this, I created one front design and 3 back designs. For the front, I kept it very minimal. I used a white background and placed the primary logo right in the center. Now for the back designs, this is where the information goes. For this part, I introduced 2 additional fonts. So aside from our main font, which is Cooper BT, I added Quicksand for the subheadings and Open Sauce for the body text. In general, you want around 3 fonts in a design system, 1 for headings, 1 for subheadings, and 1 for body text. And then you just stay consistent with that across all your designs. So for this first version, I added the name, the role, and the usual contact details you'd see on a business card. Then below that, I included a space for social handles and a website. On the right side, I added one of the submarks we created earlier just to tie everything together. For the icons, most of these are from Canva, but if you ever can't find a specific icon like certain social media logos, you can source them online. Just make sure to download them as SVG files so you can still change the colors once you upload them into Canva. Now for the second version, I changed the background to dark green. I basically reused the same layout and information from the first version. On the left side, I used one of our submark elements again, just without the circle. And then for the third version, I switched the background to brown. Again, same information, same structure, just a slightly different layout. On the right side, I added a rounded rectangle and used that to add the social media details. I also reused the cowboy hat and star elements from earlier. And that's the full business card set. Alright, so now let's move on to email signatures. These are basically what show up at the bottom of your emails, and they're a really great addition to a branding kit. So for this, I created 3 different versions. For the first version, I pretty much reused the same information from the business card, so the name, position, and contact details. I literally just copied and pasted it. Then right below that, I added a space for social media links, and on the right side, I placed the primary logo. For the second version, I added a section for a photo. This one's important. When you're choosing a photo, make sure it actually fits the overall aesthetic of the brand. I feel like this is something people don't pay enough attention to, but it really makes a difference in how polished the final design looks. Even though this is just a placeholder and it'll eventually be replaced, it still affects how the design is presented, especially in your listings. So just make sure it aligns with the overall vibe. For this layout, I placed the main information in the center, then added the social media details below. On the right side, I reused one of the icons from our submarks, and underneath that, I added the name and position inside a rounded rectangle with a border. And then for the third version, I dedicated the entire right side to a full photo. So if someone prefers a more personal look with their face more prominent, they have that option. Then below the photo, I added space for social links, and on the left side, I kept the same information layout that we've been using throughout. And that's the email signature set. Alright, and last but not the least, we have the thank you card. This is something businesses usually include with their orders, either printed or sent online. So this is a two-sided design. For the front, I kept it very simple. I used the secondary logo and placed it on a brown background. Then for the back, this is where all the text goes, so I used a white background to keep everything easy to read. At the top, I added a thank you for your support message and reused the same lasso element from the main logo just to keep things consistent. Then for the body text, this is really just a placeholder so customers know where to add their own message. On the left side, I added a space for a discount code since that's something a lot of businesses like to include. And on the right side, I placed the contact information so customers know where to reach the business if they need anything. And we're done with the thank you card. Alright, so now we pretty much have a full branding kit. We've got the logos, the Facebook covers, which can also be resized into YouTube banners, X or Twitter headers, even Pinterest covers. And then we've got business cards, thank you cards, and email signatures. So with all of these, you can sell them individually or you can bundle them together as a full branding kit. Personally, I recommend doing both. It gives you more listings in your shop and more opportunities to make sales. Now, one question I get a lot is, how do you actually deliver this to your customers? So I'm just going to quickly walk you through that. What you want to do is click on share, and then you'll see the option for template link. Go ahead and click that and then generate your template link. The link is what you're going to include in a PDF that you deliver to your customer. Once someone purchases your product on Etsy and clicks that link, they'll be taken to Canva and prompted to create their own copy. So they won't be editing your original file. Everything happens on their own copy. And from there, they can change the text, upload their own photos, adjust the colors, basically customize everything to fit their brand. And that's pretty much what you're delivering, a fully editable version of the templates that you created. Now that you have all of this information, it's your turn to create your own branding kit. I hope you learned something from this video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. It really helps my channel. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!